our next guest, Steve Stockman, defeated the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jack Brooks. Still, after almost 20 years, Steve Stockman has to his name 2 terms in Congress. Elected in '94, subsequently defeated, he returned amidst the Tea Party fervor, and he is leaving again. So we sat down to talk about life on Capitol Hill then and now.
At the time I ran in '94, we ran in a seat which was highly Democrat. He was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. He was there for 42 years. We outspent us 12-1, but we had 2,200 volunteers. Up at that point, every single Democrat president won the district. And because of the movement and because of the message and contract with America and so forth, we were able to be victorious in a very heavily Democrat seat. And the night of the election, Dan Rather took his glasses off and says, "Jack Brooks just went down." It was a historic defeat for the Democrats, and I was honored to be a part of that, in a small part, in that those volunteers carried the message forward and were victorious. So it was very much an honor to be a part of that.
And on that incredible night in 1994, because of Jack Brooks and his baronial style and really not taking into account the rights of the minority at all, you pulled this tremendous upset. You look back on that, you're called a giant killer. Well, Steve, as a consequence of that huge win in 1994, suddenly you become a huge target in 1996. You look back at what you faced then. Were you ready for what they were going to dish out toward you?
Well, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but the Supreme Court threw our district lines out. We actually won in November. We had a runoff in December, and that's when the Democrats got energized, and they put more Democrats in my district. There's only so much you can overcome. And when they redrew those lines, and we had a lot of other challenging things involved, we didn't have voter ID. We were disappointed, but on the other hand, we did something that set the foundations for seeing Texas go into a different direction, a Republican direction, and we were one of the first, and I'm honored to be a part of that.
So, Steve, you reminded us of what can only be called Democrat chicanery in the Lone Star State, your race, then against Tom DeLay going to court, and more recently against Governor Rick Perry. What is it about Travis County, Austin, and other Democrat enclaves in Texas where they respond with such ferocity against conservatives and Republicans?
I think actually anybody that's a conservative, yourself included, there's a Chinese saying, you know, the nail that sticks up gets hammered first. As I've been a vocal opponent of this administration, we also have seen a similar kind of brute force in response. We've called for the arrest of Lois Lerner. We've called for investigations against the IRS, and that has got a blowback on us. So it's across the board. If you speak up, people wonder why don't congressmen speak up more? Well, you pay a heavy family price and you pay a heavy toll, and that's going to continue to be that way. But I look back this way. Many people have given their life for their country, and if I don't speak up, then I'm a much less man. I mean, there's a foundation which people sacrifice all the time, and what I'm sacrificing is nowhere near what many others have sacrificed.
So almost, what, a decade and a half passes from that first term, and another grassroots movement, much like the contract in '94, by 2010, it's the Tea Party. When you think about those two uprisings that brought you to Congress, what comes to mind?
Yeah, well, I got out of politics a little bit. My mother died right after I got elected, and then my father took ill with Alzheimer's, which is a devastating disease. And I made a commitment to him that I would see that through. And then this opportunity came, and of course our friends in the liberal press said, don't worry, he can't win, he doesn't have a campaign manager, has no campaign consultants. But it wasn't me so much as the grassroots that rose up. We're outspent 15-1 again, we had 11 opponents. But it's the message, and that's the one thing that people keep forgetting. It's not the person, but it's the message and the ideology that will carry you through if you do it right. If you incite the people and get them excited, and by the way, I think our last election in the president was lost because we didn't get the base excited. We didn't encourage them. And we need to do that. We keep forgetting. The people are out there are sacrificing for us we need to realize we need to stand up for them.
Steve, if I'm not mistaken, the Texas truism is dance with them what brung you. Yet you come in and a division opens up within the Republican conference, the establishment Republicans versus the grassroots conservatives. When you look back at this past term, what was the first sign that leadership might take a different path from the conservatives who were elected with the help of the Tea Party?
Well, you and I both know John Boehner from a long time ago, and you know, some of his personality is to try to get along, but in leadership, you're not there to get along. You're there to lead, and sometimes leading means sacrifice. Sometimes it means to go forward with a great deal of gusto and not care about the polls, not care about really what's being told by the popular press. Go forward, do your beliefs, exercise that, and you're right. Pay attention to your base. Those are the guys that have knocked on the doors, they sweated for you. My goodness, return the favor by doing something they want and not worry about what the Washington Post or the New York Times says about you.
Steve, we've had some similar experiences, including challenging sitting senators within our own party. You as a sitting member of Congress and me as a former member. When you take a look back at your recent Senate challenge of John Cornyn, would you still do it, or would you have opted to run for re-election for the House?
Well, people don't know this, but my opponent is involved in leadership, and in 2010 the House picked up seats, but the Senate did not, and I believe it's because we weren't articulating a conservative message and we weren't carrying forward. I mean, you can see there's exactly it's the same year, two different outcomes, and I believe that you have to respond to that call in your heart to do the right thing, regardless of the outcome. You're not called to win, you're called to do the right thing. And I think that from that race, first of all, we drew a lot of funding away. Out of 47 races, we got, out of 47 Senate races, we received seventh most number of votes. So we did rather well. Had we had more money, I think we would have been victorious. And it sent a message that the conservatives really do care about things. And I will, I ran before and lost. You can run and lose. That's part of the course. And I'm glad I did it, and I'd do it again.
Steve, you pointed out that you've seen ups and downs, but here's the question, and I don't know if you've talked to Patty about this. Will you run for public office again?
I don't know. I got to get, Patty and I decide that together, and we haven't talked about that yet. In fact, she's in Israel right now. She's on a kibbutz on the border, and I think that there's plenty of time to discuss that. And I'm looking forward also to the presidential elections. I've been asked by different candidates, to help out, so we haven't made that determination yet either. So we're looking forward to a victorious Republican president, and hopefully he'll run on the message that you and I ran on in '94, which is conservative values, and we mean conservative values. We don't just talk it.
Steve Stockman, about 30 seconds left. You walk the walk. You didn't just talk the talk. What do you want people to remember about you?
That I didn't blow with the wind, that I took up the challenge, and even though it may have been difficult on my family and on me, and it will continue to be difficult, I will not blow in the wind. I will stand firm, and I will stand up against the machine, which is here to, I think, undermine America's values, America's courage, and America's reputation around the world has been diminished, and we'll stand strong.
Steve Stockman right there. There's no confusing Steve with the late, great Frank Sinatra. And yet, like old Blue Eyes saying, I guess the proposition also applies to Steve Stockman. He did it his way, and he would tell you the right way. And if you noticed, John and Francesca, he did not rule out a possible future run for public office. Wouldn't it be interesting if we see Congressman Stockton come back in a form of a congressional hat trick sometime in the years ahead?
Yeah, JD, I don't know if anybody really, it's, when you're asked that question, as many politicians are asked, it'd be hard to imagine anyone ever ruling out another run.
I liked his take on it's the message, not the person. I thought that was a wonderful thing to bring up there, very important.
Well, I think he had some good things to say. And coming up next hour, Ohio Senator Rob Portman to talk about the business of the people here on Capitol Hill.
All right, we'll look forward to that, JD. And, of course, we'll have that interview with Rob Portman coming up and much more here on America's Forum as we roll on. We're back after this short commercial break.